Hello, and welcome to Shit Pastas After Dark. I will be your host, Midnight Stars, tonight, as I take you through a little story called Dead, a Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time cartridge story. Alright, if I correctly concur, it was 3 years ago around my birthday. I had recently dug out my old Nintendo 64 and decided to go on a nostalgia trip, playing one of I considered the best games ever, as everyone who writes one of these stories does, of course, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So I dug the Nintendo 64 out of my closet, as I already said, but couldn't find Ocarina of Time, or any game for that matter, because I had mysteriously made them disappear. I looked everywhere, but no luck whatsoever. After a few days of searching for the cartridge, funny that you're looking for only the one instead of, I don't know, all of them, I was talking to some of my friends at a nearby park where we usually went to hang out. And it just so happened that Jeremy, one of my friends, said that he might have a copy of the game. I was really happy to hear this. I was thinking that I might actually have a chance to play my game again, since there was no gaming store in that old town and the nearest one was about 2 hours away, and the internet didn't exist. On top of that, we really didn't travel that often. I asked him about it, but I was disappointed at what he said. He said that the cartridge was in his bedroom a couple days before, but it went missing, and he really hadn't looked for it, despite me asking him to. And, of course, everyone's games in this town are just disappearing left and right. He told me that he would look for it that night, and he found it. If he found it, he would drop by my house the next day. I obviously agreed and couldn't wait for the coming day. The next day, I heard the doorbell ring about 12 o'clock, and I ran downstairs, hoping it was Jeremy. My parents weren't home, so I went ahead and looked through the window, and my hopes were correct. Because of course they were. He did seem a bit under the weather, so to speak, when I opened the door. He seemed pretty pale, and I looked sick. I asked him what was wrong, but he just replied that he couldn't sleep the night before. I could tell there was something worse wrong with him, but I just ignored it and took the game from him. Adam, I don't want you to play the game. Please, he said, sounding like he was hiding something. I asked why, first of all, but got no reply from him. Instead, he just walked away, heading towards his house. I was already getting unnerved, but I decided to head back inside and ignore it. It did bother me that it may have been the game that caused whatever was wrong with him, but I contemplated it, and it didn't really make much sense how it would be possible. So I ignored everything and just decided, I'll go with my gut feeling. I pushed open my bedroom door and made sure my Nintendo 64 was hooked up before popping the cartridge in my Nintendo 64. You didn't need to say it again. Anxious to begin playing the wonderful game again. However, it didn't work. I was getting worried, and I remembered to blow out the cartridge. Instead of blowing on it, just blow it out, of course, as well as the system to get the game playing. I began to blow out on the cartridge when I noticed something. The inside of the cartridge was covered in some black crusty stuff. Oh no. Oh boy. I really couldn't explain it, but in reality, it didn't bother me that bad. So you get a cartridge, and there's some black crusty stuff on it. And so you look at it, and you decide, everything's fine. Okay. I grabbed a washcloth and managed to get rid of the substance, hoping that I didn't damage the game by doing so. Should have used rubbing alcohol. Then I proceeded to blow on the cartridge again, then the console itself. I was so happy when I flipped on the switch on the old system and the game started, and I was glad to finally play it after all these years. Oh boy. The Nintendo logo came up as usual, but here's where it started getting eerie. The sky was an odd reddish color and was very badly glitched, and the logo was a bit distorted, and large portions of the logo as a whole were missing. The scenery was also glitched a bit, and none of the land around Link and Epona had color. It was just a lifeless gray color. Aside from all that, the press start notification showed up fine. So I just pressed start, convincing myself the whole thing was just a texture glitch, because of course it was, and that I could live with it. I then saw that there was one account saved on the cartridge. The name was really unnerving, especially after the sky glitch. The profile's name was Dead. In all caps, of course. Then I decided I should delete the account, considering it was probably just some prank cooked up by my friend, instead of using one of the other 2 available slots. I pressed the delete button to delete the account, but nothing happened. After the same thing occurred when I picked the option to make a new account, or copy the dead account for that matter, I finally realized that it must be some hacked cartridge or something. Because of course it would be. But I didn't mind it. I went ahead and opened up the account window against my better judgment. The window showed that he had all of the medallions, max health, etc. He had already beaten the game. Without much other option, I clicked the button and started to play the game using Dead. Aside from, I don't know, getting an emulator. It was really weird what happened. The screen faded to black, then relit to find glitched Navi already at Link's bedside to wake him up, as if the game had restarted from the beginning, skipping the intro. Her dialogue was normal, other than the fact that she referred to me by my real name, Adam, which was odd because the account was clearly dead. Oh well, creepy or not, I wanted a new game. The texture's damaged or not, maybe Jeremy was just trying to be an ass, because apparently he does this kind of stuff on the regular. I never knew him to do anything like this. Oh, I guess not. Or know anyone who could, so I didn't really believe that was the case. I remember that he told me not to play it, and it really bothered me at this point. So I kept playing, of course. I left Link's house only to find something really odd. The forest was completely of anything I could interact with, beside the houses, which were all still there. The houses all had a door blocking the entrance, and there was no background music playing, not even the crowing and such that would play if it was night. When I approached all of the doors and pressed A, it said ... and wouldn't open. I tried this on all of the houses, but every one of them did the exact same thing. I finally ventured up the forest exit, which was blocked by the indestructible boulders, spelled without a U, that you encounter later on in the game. Actually, none of the boulders are indestructible. You can throw the gray ones. So, gonna have to deduct some points there. I then checked my inventory to find it filled full of the Lens of Truth. There was a copy of the item filling each spot in my inventory. I tried activating them, but it just played the incorrect sound and did nothing. After rechecking everything, I walked to the Great Deku Tree's grotto without much of a choice. But what I found was pretty weird. You know, the game does that if you don't have a magic meter, and you try using them. There was no Great Deku Tree. The tree's sapling was also gone, as it should be in this stage of the game. In the center of the grove, where the tree stands, there was a clone of Link, except his tunic was completely black, as if leading in an endless void. I approached to find the situation get graver. His complexion was completely white, his eyes were voids, and he was dismembered, only having one arm and one leg. Yeah, nice. I didn't know what to do. I ran around it, but its gaze never left me. I finally talked to it, and the text box appeared. Hello, Daniel. I'm dead. All caps, of course. I will show you the places beyond this place. Would you like that? After it asked, the answer prompt came up and said yes. But where no was supposed to be, there was a glitched text symbol that I couldn't make out. I clicked the glitched symbol multiple times, every time it played the incorrect sound, and I finally clicked yes. The screen then stood still for about 5 seconds. I thought the game crashed, but I was about to turn off the console. My Link turned void black, then glitched into pixels. The movie featuring Adam Sandler? Directly after that, the game went to black. When it relit, I was in the grotto where you first meet Zelda. You meet her in a courtyard, not a grotto. However, I was more than shocked at what was seeing. Child Zelda was laying down in the center of the grotto, resting on a pool of blood. Keeping the Zelda style, though. At least it's not hyper-realistic blood. The music playing was that of when you first meet Zelda, but in reverse. So it was Ballad of the Goddess, and slightly higher in pitch, if I remember right. I then checked my inventory again to find it completely empty. Besides what looked like Zelda's note, I equipped it to a C button and then used it, which caused Link to not lift it up in the air as usual, but to look as if he was reading it, holding it in front of him. The text box typed out slowly. Too late. The message then disappeared from my C button, and when I disappeared from the C button, and when I checked my inventory, it wasn't there either. Finally, I approached Zelda and pressed A. The text box came up and said ... once again. Sure, a lot of dots here. The screen then faded to a solid red screen. For a split second, the screen showed Dead's Link and played a really loud, high-pitched screech, because you had the time to get a good look at it in that split second. It like to have given me a heart attack. I bet it did. Then the screen came up, and I was back in the grotto, where you meet Zelda. Again, courtyard. Now, however, where Zelda was laying, the blood was now a really dark red, and Zelda, in the same style as Dead's Link, was standing on top of it. There was also no music playing whatsoever now. I was pretty shocked at this point. I really wanted to get rid of the cartridge, which now seemed like nothing more than a sick joke. I tried doing everything, besides going up to the beast. You even tried turning it off? I tried saving and quitting to the menu, but nothing worked. You know, you could just pull the plug, pull the cartridge out. Okay. Where was I? I found that it traced my every movement, just like Dead did. How did you know this? Oh, you mean the figure when you moved. Okay, sure. I finally talked to it. It said, "You're at the gate. Would you like to enter hell?" With a dot between H and E. It prompted me again with the yes-no options like earlier, and the no is still screwed up. I didn't stop pressing the no button until finally my controller lost complete control. It chose yes very slowly, without my control. I remember shouting at my TV screen as the screen faded to black. The next part was horrible. Oh boy. It stayed at a black screen, but it was still playing audio. I heard Link's startled sound, then I heard something that sounded like the impact of a blunt object on a body, and I heard Link screaming like nothing ever before. I know it wasn't in the game. It was a horrible yell that sounded of pure suffering as I kept hearing the beating sound. Then finally the screaming stopped, and then a sound that sounded like crying from Link was heard. He kept crying for about 10 seconds. Of course, and you still didn't think to turn off the power, did you? No, of course not. It was disturbing me by far at this point. It was terrible. Finally, I heard what sounded like the Master Sword unsheathing. The last thing I heard was Link starting to, begin a scream, but suddenly stopped along with the sound that sounded like the sword impaling flesh. Great, yeah. 'Cause gore is how you make good horror. I remember I was very well in horror and sadness as my hero was murdered. Oh my god. I remember the same audio track that had played in the first grotto with Zelda had been playing through the whole scene. Again, it's not a grotto. And all of a sudden the music stopped. Dead Link's face popped up out of nowhere and said, "I'm dead. Now you are too." Then I heard an ear-piercing loud screech that seemed as if it was going to deafen me. My TV went to static as I unhooked my N64. Finally, a smart move there. I took the cartridge and threw it down the stairs as hard as I could. That's great, no need to do that. Wanting to get that thing as far away from me as possible. I remember laying in my bed, after turning off my TV. I finally got up to store the console back in its place once and for all. This is what happened overall. Oh, we get a nice summary. I don't know the reasoning of this thing. I got Ocarina of Time 3D for the 3DS this year, and hopefully I will be able to play it with no more horrid content. Going back, Jeremy was nowhere to be found the day after he gave me the cartridge. His parents didn't know where he was either, because of course, every time you ask a friend for a copy of Ocarina of Time, they just disappear off the face of the earth, you know? And he wound up missing entirely. About a month later, I received a letter in the mail from his parents' address, dated exactly a week after he went missing. It talked about how if I hadn't played the game, I really shouldn't, and he actually explained the cartridge. He apparently lent it to his friend, who was supposed to mod it with a Game Shark. However, his friend apparently entered an incorrect increment in the code, because that's how Game Sharks work, and it unlocked something that was locked away and hidden within the cartridge. So this is every Ocarina of Time story ever. Got it. Something creepy in the base game that the devs didn't want you to know about. He told me about something that would happen if you did one thing that I didn't do, but I don't think I'll put it here, just in case it could still trigger what happened to my friend. He apologized that he had forgot about the cartridge, as he never played it after his friend warned him not to. When he found it, he said he wanted to play through it before giving it to me, only to find the dead version, and whatever the horrible glitch was, he mentioned something about it doesn't trigger unless what he called the dead version was unlocked. Which it was, apparently. I still don't think it would be a good idea to post it here, as someone may once again unlock the dead version of the game. Yeah, because that exists, and because by the time Ocarina of Time 3D came out, we totally hadn't data mined the game. I'm really sorry for anyone who may find this secret version or whatever it is. I feel even more pity if you figure out the way to trigger whatever caused my friend's illness. It was a disappearance. I searched for the cartridge after storing the N64 in what I think will be its final resting place. I couldn't bear to play another N64 game, and on top of that, my games are still missing. Because that's never explained. I still to this day don't know where that cartridge went. We moved from that house right after Christmas that year. I hope you readers out there never find the dead version. Furthermore, I hope you never find anything to do with it in any game. I don't know how many cartridges the version, as I barely stand to call it, is programmed in, but never try to find it. I beg of you, if you do find it, don't play the game. I fear your sanity and your life if you don't heed this warning. As for me, I'm living a normal life, but the cartridge has been lately haunting me in my dreams. Because of course, that's how they always end, is... I had a dream about it. I'm having strange nightmares and I can't sleep at night. I'm just not sure, and I'm hoping I can get rid of it by posting this story. Goodbye, and may you never meet the curse known as dead. Oh boy. Alright, so that was Ocarina of Time. That was Dead, a Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time cartridge story. Very similar to another story about Ocarina of Time. I think called Zelda 64 Beta or something. I don't remember. There's like several of them. It's very tropey, has the old I got a haunted cartridge thing. The whole there's a secret in the game and there's blood and it's not explained thing. I'll put a link to it in the description if you want to read it yourself. And I hope you have a good one. I hope you have a good night. Let me know if you like these kind of videos, and maybe I'll do some more readings of really bad gaming creepypastas that are funny to read. Yeah. Shout out to Yuri of Wind for inspiration behind the idea of reading some not-so-great creepypastas with his bullshit creepypasta story time. If you don't know already, I don't know who all I've mentioned this to, but that's where I sort of got into horror in general, is through those, and then things just spiraled from there to finding actual gaming creepypastas and shit. But I hope you have a good Halloween. I know this is a little bit of a different video, but I'll see you guys around. Have a good one, and good night.